Welcome children. Today we are going to discuss about a new unit which is about light. What is actually light? Light, when we consider, it is an electromagnetic radiation. It is an electromagnetic radiation. That means when we observe the visible spectrum of electromagnetic, that means a visible spectrum that comes in electromagnetic radiation. That means electromagnetic spectrum consists of different radiations. In that the radiations are radio waves, microwaves, then visible light, ultraviolet radiations, X-rays, gamma rays. Among these radiations, one part of it we can see, or one part of it help us to see object, and that part is called light. Now, when you observe in the sky at night, we can see moon and also stars, and because we see that object such as sun and other object, and we can read words and sentences from our books. Then actually, how we see object, or what we see object, what help us to see object? You may say with our eye, you may say with our eyes we see the object, but can we see object at night? Is it possible to see object at night? That means in a dark room. That is in a dark room we cannot see object. That means with our eye alone we cannot see object. For that light is required. So to see object, what is required? Light is required. That means whenever light is reflected or comes from an object, or an object emits light, we see object. So to see object, what is required for us? That is, light is required for to see an object. That means some of the object emits light, some other objects are reflected light. That means certain object which emits light, that means object which can emit lights are called luminous object. What it is called? Luminous object. Object which emits light. Luminous object means an object which can emit light, or light emitting objects are called luminous object. Example: sun, stars, candle, fire. These all emits light. So that they are called luminous object. But some other object that reflects light which falls on it. For example, moon, or a book from which we can read the sentence or words. Such kind of things are called what is a illuminated object. What is called illuminated objects. There are two different categories. One is luminous object luminous object can emit lights by itself. Luminous object can emit light by itself is called luminous object. But some other object which emits only light that falls on it is called what is illuminated object. What? Illuminated object. Now here we are going to discuss about at first laws of reflection. There are two laws of reflection. When we going to discuss about laws of reflection, we want to know about a ray of light. A narrow beam of light we generally take as a ray of light, but actually it consists of several rays. Then also a narrow beam of light we took as but a ray of light. Here on activities given for you, that activities you can do, take a comb and cover completely it with black paper except on opening at its middle, at its center. Then fix a paper on a drawing sheet. Then keep that comb vertical, that means perpendicular to it. Then from light, from a torch, light from a torch is allowed to fall on it in such a way that the light must pass through that opening and it falls on the paper. Then you can see a ray of light. Now place a plain mirror in between this comb and paper. Then allow to reflect that lights from it and draw that on in your paper. Suppose this is the plain mirror and this is a perpendicular to this plain mirror, that means which makes a 90 degree. That means angle between this plain mirror and this line is 90 degree. And allow to fall this light from here. See, this, the light which falls on the surface. This is the light which falls on the surface, on the surface of the plain mirror. And this one is called, what is the name of this ray? Incident ray. The light that falls on the surface here, the smoothest surface is a plain mirror, and that ray of light is called what is incident ray. And the light that comes from that surface, light that comes from that light is called here, even though it is a beam, we consider as a ray of light. The ray which comes and falls on this surface is called incident ray. And the light that comes from the surface is called reflector ray. Which is this ray? Reflector ray. See here, this is the incident ray What do you mean by incident ray? The light ray that strikes on the surface, on any surface, is called incident ray. And what is reflector ray? The light ray that returns from the surface. It is called a reflector ray. And the perpendicular which we drawn at this point of incidence of light ray is called normal. So here three terms you should remember: on incident ray, another reflector ray, and third one is normal. See, now we can discuss about what is actually incident ray. Incident ray. That means the ray strikes on the surface. That is incident ray. Another term are reflector ray. Ray comes from the surface or returned from the surface. Ray which returned or comes from the surface is called a reflector ray. Then that means comes or returned from the surface. And then normal. It is a line that is perpendicular or which makes 90 degree with this plane mirror at this point. That means where the point of incidence, and it is called normal. Now you got idea about what is actually incident ray, reflector ray, and also normal. Now see the angle between this incident ray and normal. This angle. This is the angle between incident ray and normal. That we can take as I. And this angle is called angle of incidence. Angle of incidence. What is the angle of incidence? It is the angle between this incident ray and the normal. And we usually represent it with angle I. Then another one is angle of reflection. Angle of reflection. That is R. Angle of reflection. Now we want to find, is there any relation between the angle of incidence and angle of reflection? For that, at first measure the angle of incidence, then corresponding angle of reflection you should know. See here angle I, angle of incidence here, angle R. Let the angle of incidence here, let me take it as a 25 degree. Is angle between incident ray and normal. So angle of incidence I here 25 degree. Then observe the angle of reflection from here. When you observe here, we got it is also 25. That means sometimes it is very nearly equal. Some 24 point something in that way it will come. Here angle of incidence now we make suppose it be 30. Again we measure, that means angle of incidence we made, that means incident ray we make a 30-degree angle. Then angular reflection when we measure we got it as also 30. One more observation we are going to do, that is here suppose it is 35. That means angle of incidence we made, now it is 35. And again measure this angle of reflection. Now this also will get 35. From this, what idea we get about the angle of incidence and angle of reflection? See, whenever the angle of incidence is 25, angular reflection is also 25. Angular reflection 30, angle of incidence 30, angular reflection 30. And when angular reflection is 35, incidence also 35. From this we get one idea that angle of incidence is equal to the angle of reflection. Angle of incidence is equal to the angle of reflection. That is the things we are getting from this observation. Once again, what idea we got from this? That means the idea we got, that is angle of incidence equal to angle of reflection. This is the first law of reflection. That means angle of incidence is equal to the angle of reflection. Once again, angle of incidence is equal to the angle of reflection that we got from this observation. So, when we state about the laws of reflection, among that one is what angle of incidence is equal to angle of reflection. Now, we want to find out is they are in same plane or in different plane. Let me say, is the angle of incidence equal to angular reflection? Then the incident ray, a reflector ray and normal which we drawn at the point of incidence, they are lie on the same plane. That we want to find out. For that, there is one more activity is given, and in that activity, that means suppose when we strikes the ray, in this case we can see this incident ray reflector ray normal. These are on the same plane. See, incident ray, a reflector ray, normal. These three are in the same plane. Now we want to confirm this is correct or not. For that, we want to make the above activity with a thick paper, and its middle part we cut. And when we place this sheet of paper at one end, at first, that means the center part of this paper is we cut. Then see, the incident ray is falling. We can see the reflector ray also on the sheet of paper we get it. But when we fold this part, that means this reflector ray part, again we observe. Can we see the reflector ray there? Now we got to see the reflector ray at this position. Before we fold this paper, This incident, reflected, normal, they were on the same plane. Incident, reflected and normal, they were on the same plane. But when we fold this part, now these two are in the same plane and this is not on that plane, this part. So we cannot get the reflector ray there. From this we conclude, or we came to know that what incident ray, a reflector ray and normal which we drawn at the point of incidence to the surface are in the same plane. That means this is the another law of reflection. This another law of reflection. What it says? Another law of reflection says incident ray, reflector ray and normal, that all lie on the same plane. That all lie on the same plane. Once again, the two laws of reflection, which are the first one is about angle of incidence is equal to the angle of reflection. Angle of incidence is equal to the angle of reflection. Second one is about incident ray. Another one is what? Reflector ray. Then one more term, which is that normal. These are in the same plane. This is another law of reflection. That means incident ray, reflector ray and normal, that all lie in the same plane. Now, we want to know reflections about a plane mirror. In your previous class, you studied about a reflection. That means, in the case of a plane mirror, what are the things you studied there? First of all, is the image formed by a plane mirror is real or virtual? Can you remember about its answer? That means image formed by a plane mirror is real or virtual. Second one, is the image formed by a plane mirror is upside down or not? And third one, is the image formed by a plane mirror is of the same size as that of the object? That means size of object and size of image, that are equal or not? Can you remember it? Then one more thing, is the image formed by a plane mirror that we can hold on a screen? These are the things you were studied in your previous class. So, now we are going to discuss more about image formed by a plane mirror. See, this is a plane mirror. O is a point source of object. From that, two light rays comes. Let it be OA and OB. Now see, this light, when falling these points, we know this surface is so smooth, so it can reflect. This surface is so smooth, so it can reflect. So, To find the reflection, we can draw normal at these points. We know here the angle of incidence and angle of reflection, that must be equal. Now draw the reflector rays. Try to extend this one. Is these two reflector rays meeting? Let me say, here is our eye, which we are seeing these light rays coming from. That is reflector light rays. Let me A, C and BD. Now we extend these light rays in the backward. Now what we can observe, these rays meeting at this point, at the point I. So I is the image of the object O. What is actually I is the image. I is the image of which object O. So here we get the image. Now again, is the light rays really meeting at this point? Is the light rays really meeting at this point? Is it? No. So the image formed here is a virtual. So the image formed here is a virtual image. What are the other things you know about the image formed by a plane mirror? On here the image formed is virtual, so it we cannot hold on a screen. So it we cannot get on a screen. Not get on a screen. Not get on a screen. That image is not getting on a screen. Now again, see, we know from our previous experience the size of object is equal to size of the image. That means object size. That means size of the object means size of the object is equal to size of the image. It means if the object is of the size 5 centimeter length, then the image is also 5 centimeter. That means these two are of the same size. Another term, that means this you are to know about image formed by a plane mirror. That means object size and image size, that to be the same. Then another is the whatever is the object distance from the mirror. For example, this object is at a distance of 2 meters. 2 meters away from the mirror. This is object distance. Then the image which we see on the mirror is also at the same distance. It appears as the same distance of 2 meters itself. That means whatever is the distance of the object from the mirror. In the case of a plane mirror, the image is also appears at such a distance. That means if 2 meter distance from mirror to the object, then the image in it also appears at a distance of 2 meter. Then the image laterally inverted. Laterally inverted means that means left part of the object That means which is the left part of the object is in the mirror appears to the right part in the image. That means left changes to right. That means which part of the object is in the left, that appears to right, and the right part appears to left. That means image is laterally inverted. Image is laterally inverted. That means sideways changed. Left changes to right and right changes to left. That is also happening. These are the specialities of image formed by what is a plane mirror. What are the things? You want to remember? Object distance and image distance same. Size of the object and size of the image also same. Image laterally inverted. That means which is the left part we see in the object, and that we see on the right part as in the mirror. So image is laterally inverted or sideways changed, and this image is actually virtual, so that we cannot get on a screen. These are the properties of what is image formed by a plane mirror. Now, regular and diffused reflection. See, a plane surface. This is a plane surface, not smooth. This is a plane surface, but it is not smooth. When light falls on this surface, here also it falls, here also it falls. That means parallel rays of light falls on this surface. This is a plane surface. That means the surface is not smooth. So parallel rays of light falls on this surface. We know that this angle of these rays are parallel. But you see, when reflected, that means angle of incidence equal to angle of reflection. So this one is reflected in this manner. This one is reflected in this way. This one may be reflected in this manner. And this one this way. See, the reflector rays 1, 2, 3, 4. Does the reflector rays now parallel? See, is this 1, 2, 3, 4 marked that are reflected? Is they are parallel? No. Such a type of reflection is called irregular reflection or diffused reflection. Irregular reflection or diffused. Irregular reflection. Otherwise, diffused reflection. What actually irregular or diffused reflection? When the parallel light rays falls on a plane surface, when a parallel beam of light rays falls on a plane surface, if the reflector rays are not parallel, such a type of reflection is called irregular reflection or diffused reflection. But irregular reflection or diffused reflection. Now we want to know about a regular reflection. See, if the plane surface is smooth, before we see that it was a plane surface, but that contains a large number of what is small pits and hills. So even though that were plain, but that is rough, that were a rough surface. But here you see, if the surface is very smooth, then if the light rays, that means a parallel beam of light rays falls on this surface, see, after reflection, these rays becomes parallel. After reflection, see, reflector rays also parallel. Incident rays are parallel, reflector rays also parallel. And such a type of reflection is called a regular reflection. Such a type of reflection is called what is a regular reflection. There are two types of reflection. One is irregular reflection or diffused reflection. Another one is a regular reflection. Sometimes you may think in irregular reflection or diffused reflection, laws of reflection not obeying. Actually, there is also the laws of reflection correct, or it is also obeying laws of reflection. But what actually, even though it is a plane, that surface is not smooth, because of that reflector rays are not parallel. Okay, with these all things, today what are the things we discussed about? We discussed about what is actually light. Light is actually an electromagnetic radiation which help us to see objects. Light is an electromagnetic radiation which helping us to see objects. Then, what are the two laws of reflection? Two laws. Among that, first one is incident ray, reflector ray, and normal, which is drawn at the point of incidence. That all lie on the same plane. Incident ray, reflector ray, normal at the point of incidence are in the same plane. And another law is what is angle of incidence is equal to the angle of reflection. Angle of incidence is equal to the angle of reflection. Then we discussed about luminous object and illuminated object. Luminous object means an object which can emit light. Example, star, sun, etc. Illuminated object means an object which can reflect light which falls on it. Example, moon and some white paper, etc. When light falls, that reflect, because of that we can see that one. Then we discussed about what is irregular reflection or diffused reflection. What is actually irregular reflection or diffused reflection? If the reflector rays were not parallel, when the incident rays are parallel, that is called irregular reflection. Then about regular reflection. When light falls on a smooth surface, the reflector rays also becomes parallel. Then what are the properties of reflection, that is image formed by a plane mirror? That all things we discussed, and with these all things we can conclude today's class. Okay, thank you.